What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Body Lock. It's your man Ant Walker here with Matt Wells and Pat Auger, reacting to breaking news here on the Chimaev News Network. Breaking news that we don't quite understand because it is still developing and a lot of question marks surrounding it. Before we get into it, remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. So let's run down the timeline. A couple hours ago, we got a tweet saying that you should check Chimaev's Instagram account. We saw a screenshot there and a statement. And this is what the statement said. He said, "I want to say thank you." And before, I should preface this by saying this was in Russian and translated via Instagram. So the statement reads as follows. "I want to say thank you to everyone for their support in my path in this sport. I think I'm done. Yes, I know that I didn't take the belt, but this is not the most important victory in this life. It may upset you, but my heart and body tell me everything. I want to say a huge thank you to my team at All Stars Gym Sweden. I want to say a huge thank you at UFC." So, by all accounts there, I mean, it just sounds pretty simple and plain. Khamzat Chimaev calling it a career, quitting the sport of mixed martial arts due to lingering issues with COVID-19. That's something that we have seen a lot of, heard a lot of since he originally contracted the virus. But it's just not that quite simple. So after we record a video reacting to this news, we then see a tweet from our friend John Morgan at MMAJunkie, who then says that he spoke with Dana White, who had just spoken to Khamzat Chimaev, where he essentially just said that he's not retired. That's
of course.
So,
of course.
I'm confused. I know you two are. What are we to make of this situation?
Well, it's standard Dana at this point, right? When a fighter says that they want to retire or that they plan on retiring, Dana comes out and says, "Nah, you're not done yet," especially if he likes that guy, a la Habib. I think this is like a similar situation, but Dana is saying that, he got emotional, which you can kind of see if Chimaev is a guy that, by all accounts, is a guy that wants to fight as much as possible, likes being in the gym. He's like that type of fighter, right? Where he wants to just be active. Like we saw in 2020, he burst onto the scene, had 3 fights in the UFC in 1 calendar year, all 3 finishes, all 3 performance bonuses. And he was set up to fight Leon Edwards for a longer period of time than should have been. As that fight came together and fell apart, and then finally fell apart for the 3rd time and went away from it. I could see the emotions being a factor, but considering that the guy is going through very real life issues with his health, maybe let's sit on that for a while instead of immediately coming out and saying that, nah, he's not done. But that's just Dana being Dana, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this over the coming days.
So Pat, can you confirm or deny what seems to be the obvious direction this is headed? Khamzat Chimaev versus Khabib Nurmagomedov for some sort of title here. Pat, seriously, what do you make of this whole situation here?
So, I mean, as you guys have mentioned, it's definitely 2 different stories, right? Chimaev is posting what seems to be he says he thinks he retires, right? So it's not a, full on, I'm gone, I'm walking away for good type of retirement. It certainly seems like at minimum a mini retirement for an extended absence from the sport. Posts pictures of a bloody sink, which has Russian and apparently translates into something along the lines of take care of your health and family. Those are the most important things on his Instagram stories. Then you have Dana coming out and saying, nah, he's just emotional. We flew him out here. Doctors take care of him. He's on prednisone and he's training and he's not getting the results he wants in trainings. He's just getting super frustrated. I believe there's probably truth to both sides of this. My guess is Chimaev is training hard. I think it was only 2 days ago he said, see you in June, right? And so he's probably trying to train hard on prednisone, which it's not recommended you do any exercise when you're on that steroid. I've taken it before. It sucks. So it's one of those things where he probably is getting very frustrated, but Dana is going to protect the brand and protect the company's image. And at a minimum, he's going to come out and say, yeah, no, Chimaev is just emotional right now. It's fine. Even if Chimaev is adamant that he's retiring, Dana's not going to say that right now. Remember, one of the key pieces of the piece that's been released now on MMAJunkie that has Dana White's comments is, we flew him out here so the doctors would take care of him. Dana knows he has a little bit of leverage to at least say, hey, all right, you're emotional, calm down, let's think about this. How about you think about it for a couple nights, right? You flew a guy in to the US to get special healthcare treatment. That guy is probably going to say, yes, he's not going to say, no, I'm done, I'm retired for sure, screw you, Dana. No. So we're in this weird period. I expect there to be at least a couple of weeks of radio silence on this. Probably Chimaev thinking about it, seeing what he wants to do with his health. And overall, throughout all of this craziness, again, his health is clearly paramount. That is what he should be focused on. He shouldn't be looking at trying to do a fight too early. If they need to push it back again, sure. If he needs to retire because his body's going through too much, so be it. But Dana is not going to, go out there and say, yeah, no, his health is too bad. Not going to do that, especially when they've done everything they can to push this guy into a main event spot and a title fight, probably, should he have beat Leon Edwards, as fast as possible. They were clearly trying to fast track this guy to a championship run. They saw the numbers he pulled in on social media, the popularity he was garnering, his performances, and don't want to give up on him just yet. So I think it's probably truth to both statements. I imagine Chimaev is emotional right now, but which statement has more truth, I'm not sure yet. It's too early to tell.
I mean, I think if I had to choose between which one of the two statements sounds more true, the statement from Khamzat Chimaev about the state of his career and his body, and Dana White, who is also, I made jest of it earlier, but he's also like essentially trying to force Khabib Nurmagomedov to not retire. I think I have to go with Khamzat Chimaev here. And I want to point at a portion of Dana's statement also. Now, this is piggybacking on what you said about taking that particular steroid, Persetidone, I think that's the pronunciation. I've taken that as well, and it does have a toll on you physically. Like you are not going to be the same in the gym if that is in your system. But let's read this statement right here. He says, he's not supposed to be training, but this guy's a savage. He wants to fight like every fucking weekend, and now he can't even train. So he just got emotional and posted that, but he ain't quitting. So we have seen footage of Khamzat Chimaev training within the last couple of weeks, that he's been in hard sparring and training, and to the point where he expressed concerns to his managers about possibly dying and having to be hospitalized after training sessions, and simply just not being able to function more than a single round. And we've got Dana himself saying he is not supposed to be training. So it sounds like at least a temporary hiatus of your career makes a lot of sense right now. This is not the time to book something in June, or just have June in mind necessarily as a target date to return. It's about being healthy. You can't compete if you're not healthy. You can't win and be successful if you're not healthy. So baby steps, I think, should be the answer to what's going on here. We are just fresh off of seeing some of that footage and seeing blood in the sink. Why is this even a debate for Dana right now? Why are we even talking about the possibility of returning in June when this man is presumably coughing blood and calling it quits as a result.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the state of where we're at with the UFC right now, right? Where they need stars, and this guy is that next potential guy. So it just so happens him and Habib seem to be cut from the same cloth in a lot of the same ways, from fight style to their portions of the world, and of course their relationships as well. But it's it's kind of funny in that way, because it's Dana just being defiant against wishes, publicly, right? Habib says, "I want to be done," and Dana's just like, "Nah, nah." In this situation, I can understand Dana being a little bit more hesitant to accept, because it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Dude, you're 26 years old. Let's see what happens here. We're not just going to say, okay, we accept your retirement and have a good life. We're going to be in your corner for a while. We're going to see what's going on with your body. We're going to help you out. Try to see if we can't get you back to a point to where you can start training again in a healthy manner and potentially make a return. That makes sense. But I don't like the way Dana always says it, right? He's like, nah, but he ain't quitting. He ain't quitting. Like, I guess that's kind of like the rah side of him. Like, oh, he's going to pull through and he's going to be just fine and, come out on the other side of this. But also within that is the promoter who is like, man, this is a lot of money I could potentially lose with this guy. So I'm not going to hear any of that talk right now. So let's make sure, that this guy doesn't just ride off into the sunset and just live his life, despite, him having a deadly disease that has killed over 500,000 people in the US alone. And apparently is going through it like very badly. So it's just an unfortunate thing that we have to see in this time that we're living in right now, where COVID is not done by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, we have vaccines on the way, but we are also seeing new variants pop up that these vaccines may not be able to handle. So we're not out of the weeds yet by any means. And you still have a lot of people that are treating it like it's over, man. And it's just not true. How many events have the UFC, thankfully, they've put on that we have fights to watch, which, we do appreciate as fans and as media members. We have fights to cover, we have stories to cover. But how many fights fall out every single weekend when there's a fight card? We had one fall out last weekend, just hours before. I would be surprised if we don't lose one this week for the upcoming pay-per-view. I'll be very surprised if one of these fights don't fall out. So it's a tricky situation for the promotion to deal with. I understand that side of it, but when a guy has the disease and is obviously going through it, I mean, just show a little bit more compassion on the front end and not just be like, nah, we're not listening to you.
I think that's a pretty fair way to look at the entire situation. I mean, we can look at some of the other people who have had presumably serious cases of COVID-19 on the UFC roster and what it has done to them. Now, Leon Edwards, Khamzat Chimaevs' previous opponent that was slated originally for December 19th. Now he's booked to face Bilal Muhammad. He was actually stated as saying he'd lost 11 pounds in 3 days when he first contracted COVID-19, and it took him a little while to get his body back into fight mode. Cody Garbrandt just went on Joe Rogan's podcast and explained in detail what life with COVID has been like for him. He lost his title opportunity against Davison Figueiredo a couple months back and has not been booked since, and has talked about lingering issues and how it's affected his training and vertigo. And there have been, I know earlier today, we were talking and one of you brought up studies where college athletes were having heart conditions and stuff as a result of COVID. So we've seen how this can affect healthy, strong, young people in their athletic prime. So this is absolutely no joke. But it also goes to show you that focusing on a fight career at this point in time just doesn't make a lot of sense. If you can barely make it through training without feeling like you're going to die, what do you think the fight's going to be like? It's and just having priorities all screwed up. I'd certainly understand from the promoter aspect that um, they've invested a lot into him and he's been heavily hyped. You look at all the factors that someone would need to kind of take over the landscape of mixed martial arts. You would think when it comes to the fights, you'd like to have a solid ground game. Well, he's got that. He's clearly got that. You like to have striking ability. Well, he's certainly got power in his hands, as evidenced by his win over Gerald Mearshart. You'd also like to have a certain sort of charisma that touches the fan base. Well, he's definitely got that in spades. And the fourth factor, he certainly has the backing of the UFC, and they've decided to kind of hitch their wagons on him and see where it can take them. So we understand from a promotional aspect why there's hesitance, but let's step outside of just the fight. Some man who was expressing concerns about dying after a training session. Let's not point to June as the time he comes back to fight. How about this man who was only 26 years old, gets the opportunity to live his full life in a healthy, happy manner. And if that involves fighting, great. If not, as long as he's happy and healthy, I think that should be the primary concern here.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, the health of Chimaev should be the main priority for both himself, his camp, his coaches, and the promoter. And we know we have all heard stories of fighters being too headstrong and doing things like training with, broken bones, right? Or with torn up bodies and just saying, yeah, okay, I broke my foot and I just went ahead and I fight's 2 weeks out. It's all right. I'm just going to train where I can and then go and step into the cage anyway. Fighters are too tough for their own good sometimes. And if Dana White's comments are true, that Chimaev is stepping in there on the steroid, having, those terrible training sessions where he's then being hospitalized or coughing up blood, that is up to not only his coaches and his team, but also the promoter for Dana to really step in and say, you can't do this. It sounds like he's trying to kind of say that, but then he's at the same breath saying, oh, by the way, he's still fighting in June though. You can't have that mixed message. You've got to say, look, it's more important that he's healthy. He should be calling out if what Dana is saying is happening. He should be calling out the coaches and teammates of Chimaev for not getting in the way and stopping Chimaev from training, because that's what they really should be doing. They should be saying, nope, you are not in no condition to do this. We're not doing training today. We're not doing any of this. And it seems like for whatever reason, they're just letting him continue to train, and they're still expecting this fight to happen in June. We still don't even know what opponent, right? In terms of that, it's a bit of a mess. So I think at this point, it makes sense for the UFC to, if you want to publicly, do the promoter thing as Dana is going to do and say, yeah, he's a savage, he's a beast, we're still aiming for June, all that, that's fine. But privately, you need to make sure that everything is being done to help Chimaev overcome this disease. Because as you mentioned, there have been studies on college athletes who have to retire for good from athletics because of heart conditions they've developed because they had severe cases of COVID. When I talked to Dr. Bradley Reeves over at Sanford MMA on the Fight Business podcast, we talked about COVID protocols and different things. And while he said, it's rare for high-level athletes to get hit by this and then be completely sidelined or suffer a lot of the, severe effects we hear about, he said they're not immune. It's this disease is not if I am in really good shape and I take care of my body, I'm going to be fine. It helps, but sometimes it doesn't, work that way. And clearly that seems to be the case with Chimaev, Garbrandt, and others. So at this point, I think it makes sense to have everyone pump the brakes, stay off social media, do what you need to do behind the scenes to make sure Chimaev is healthy. If you need to postpone the fight again, postpone the fight again. It's not a big deal. But trying to force this right now and, trying to say, okay, Chimaev is not going to retire, he's fine, when he might very well be ready for a mini retirement because of everything he's undergone and gone through. It just doesn't make sense. It's not good for business. So I'm not sure what the play is at this point, other than just kind of being silent after the statement that was put out to MMA Junkie.
Yeah, pretty interesting. I mean, we have every weekend. I mean, there's a truckload of fights. We are, having 40 something cards a year, and in a 52 week year, we have fights, at least 40 something of those. He doesn't have to fight in June. If he doesn't fight in June, there will be another card after that. And then there'll be one after that. And then there might be one after that. And there'll probably be another one after that. So there really is no rush to get this man back in the cage. At least there shouldn't be any rush. I mean, even in this MMAJunkie article, they also reached out to his main manager, Ali Abdelaziz, and he didn't reply for the request for comment right away. But I certainly would hope that he and his team at Dominance will be the exact opposite of what of what Dana's saying right now.
So what I hope that happens with Khamzat Chimaev is that Dana and company allow this man to recover and not try to capitalize on his quote unquote like 15 minutes of fame that he had in 2020, where he just burst onto the scene. I know this is the quote unquote fighting business, but it's really fight entertainment business. So it seems like the UFC is really just trying to hold on to a hot commodity while his name is hot in the streets and not just let him fade into obscurity and, not be able to recapture that upon his return if he does go away for a year or two or however long it may be. Considering that this is a very serious situation, this guy needs to just chill out for a while. Like Dana said, he needs to sit down somewhere for a while. But also, like Pat said, that doesn't make sense that doesn't jive with trying to make this guy return in the summer. So treat this guy like a person and not an entertainment commodity. Let him go get his body right, relax on his own, go be with his family, go be with his loved ones for however long he needs. He's 26 years old. Why there's no need to rush this return. We see most fighters in their prime, in their championship stages of their career in their early 30s. That's 4 years, 5 years down the road. So there's plenty of time here. And I understand trying to, squeeze the most money out of these guys while you have them. But this is a different type of situation, man. We're talking about lives are on the line. And yeah, COVID is a different situation, but in general, the UFC and MMA as a whole has really gotten lucky with fighters' health when it comes to weight cutting. That's a whole different situation as well, where these guys are cutting extreme amounts of weight. And that was a hot topic that came up in some medical journals recently as well. So there's a lot of things where MMA is really skating on thin ice when it comes to maintaining the health of these guys. And we have yet to see what it means for their bodies and their minds in their, later stages of life, because we just don't have that sample size yet. And we're just not there yet as a sport. We don't have that 60-year-old fighter yet. We don't know what they're going to look like yet. And obviously this is a different situation dealing with COVID. But in the short term, I just hope that they just let this guy recover and we go from there. And if he's not ready to return, fine. As long as he's a healthy human being who can live his life in a healthy manner. I mean, that should be the goal at the end of the day for a human being, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't say that I'm surprised at all by the level of question marks and ambiguity surrounding this story, thanks to Dana White's statements. I mean, this is the same person who said COVID was going to go away after the election, the same person who, despite the UFC's own safety protocols, refuses to wear a mask ever. And was spotted at political rallies and stuff where people were not masked, and these mass gatherings. Ironically, Ali Abdelaziz spotted in a lot of those pictures with him, who happens to be not only Khamzat's manager but also Cody Garbrandt. So Just a interesting little 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon we got going on there. But I think we really should not be shocked at all that someone who has taken this as a joke, who has decided to skirt regulation in order to keep the UFC going in the earliest stages, when this was at its scariest, when it was completely unknown of what we were dealing with, decided to push on anyway, without any real semblance of doing it responsibly, as the Tachi Palace debacle should show everyone. So I can't be surprised that now that Dana will be, forced to acknowledge the significance of COVID, beyond just what it does to disrupt the schedule because government regulation and little measly things like that. And now he's forced to react to it for real. That a potential cash cow is now kind of has it bad right now as a result. And you got to recognize this is real. This is very real. So I say all that to say I just hope Chimaev gets a full recovery. Whether we see him in the cage or not is a distant secondary concern. Of course, as fight fans, that's what we want. Someone with that much potential. We want to see what it can do, where it can go, and how high his ceiling is. But that is far, far from the most important thing right now.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, again, you guys both said it and hit the nail on the head. These fighters are human beings, and this isn't a joke, and this thing sucks. I think we can all say we're exhausted from the pandemic and the effects it's had, but I mean, this is an example of what it can do. 80% of the time or 90% of the time, this doesn't seem to happen, especially to people in prime health condition that Chimaev is, but in this particular situation, it did. So just hope for a speedy recovery for Chimaev. Hope that he fully recovers, because we do know that some of these, we don't fully know exactly what the long-term side effects are from this in terms of lung scarring, things of that nature. So just hope that he can come back and be 100%.
Yeah. If I could put a bow on it, hopefully Dana is right in the fact that Chimaev was just being emotional, and maybe he is actually feeling good at times to where he does feel like he can get up and go train, but apparently his body's just not agreeing with him yet. So yeah, hopefully, like you said, Pat, hopefully he is able to recover, and then we get the same product that we saw in 2020. But that's a distant concern, like Ant said.
So you know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. I'm Ant Walker. He's Matt Wells, and that's Pat Auger. Thanks for tuning into the Body Lock.